Hello everyone, this is update for December 23, 2023, day 668 of the war, end of the date update. Also catch up for December 21 and 22. It's going to be fairly short. I'm going to talk about the strategic update for Ukraine mostly. So first one is there is new law going through the Ukrainian parliament that changes mobilization terms and basically tighten the screws and trying to move Ukraine closer to total mobilization. It's not quite there yet. It's kind of like halfway there. Basically, the key points there is that mobilization age is reduced from 27 to 25. So this is extra 2 years, and that should give some resource. The other sort of source of resource is that government employees at this point will be, let's say, eligible to be called into the army. So that really, what this really means is mostly police, and Ukraine has, I think, like 300,000 people in police. So this is very easily sort of available, low-hanging fruit, because all of them has at least some basic experience with firearms. So it's the training is going to be easier and shorter, and there's obviously some level of compliance that's already sort of built in among that type of population. Then the other important change is that all Ukrainian citizens 18 till 60 are required to register with mobilization service. That also includes women. So that's why I'm saying it's a halfway there towards total mobilization, because it creates opportunity to call women into the army, as sort of to mobilize women into the army down the road if things gonna get worse. Also, it's very clear that this age of 25 could easily be amended all the way down till 18, and also expanded till 60, as we can see, and easily and even higher than 60. So this is the first step into trying to get this 450,000 people per, well, 20,000 people per month into the army to replenish the losses. This is obviously, I would say, forced measure, and it's result of inability to find qualitative solutions. And this is basically continuing on the path of finding solution through quantitative means, which leads to nowhere Ukraine, essentially. As I mentioned before many times, Russia at this point probably 4 times larger population-wise, so mobilization resource is 4 times larger. Losses are roughly 1-to-1, maybe best case scenario 1.5 to 1 in favor of Ukraine, but this is the best case scenario. I would say the base case is 1-to-1, maybe 1.1 to 1, but nothing better than that. So again, this means that, let's say, Ukraine calls this 450,000 people. They will be chewed up by probably August of 2024. And it's going to be back to the basics. At that point, there is a need to, probably reduce the age again to, I don't know, to 20 years old. Also, probably start mobilizing women. So again, this is path to nowhere, because Russia can always counter these actions by also calling up more people. There's no problem there, especially since psychologically situation changed, and Russian, at least there is a perception that Russian side is winning. So as you can imagine, that creates incentive inside of Russia, among population, that okay, we just it's going to be within a year this war is over, and this is opportunity to earn money and to earn recognition and move up social ladder. So this seems like the risk reward basically shifting towards reward inside of Russia from a perspective, from an average Russian's perspective. And so there will be no shortages, at least in the near-term future, in people who are willing to be mobilized, basically. Because effectively, this is, even though they are all mobilized, Ukrainian side and Russian side, they all paid relatively well relative to the rest of the population. So Russian pay in Russian side is 200,000 Russian rubles, which roughly 2,000 US dollars per month. On Ukrainian side, it's up to 3,000 US dollars per month. So they're all relatively heavily incentivized relative to the rest of the population, and especially in Ukraine, where things economy-wise are going in a negative direction and getting worse. This is obviously some source of income. Obviously, people don't go for the money, just purely for the money on neither side. It's very clear that money is just additional motivation, makes favorable decision easier for average person. That's all it is. It's just sort of smoothing already sort of decision to go there, basically. And as I said, on Russia's side, it's the reward. The ratio switched in the favor of reward. On Ukrainian side, ratio has switched into the risk category. So they will be even harder to scramble this 450,000 people or 20,000 people per month. The problem is growing by day for Ukraine, as most people, the remaining sort of people, don't want to get mobilized. There's nothing in it, as I said before, for them in terms of what this war brings, what in terms of the future, what they're fighting for, and the sort of prime example actually of this is a journalist who is the sort of basically was pushing propaganda on Ukrainian TV. Which, as I said before, it's a really poison for people inside of Ukraine, and obviously the same is going on for Russia. But I'm going to talk about Ukraine since we have very clear example. So this journalist who was pushing propaganda on Ukrainian TV, there is this, I think it's called Channel 24, basically one of the few remaining channels. He actually fled to Europe. So basically, it's sort of he didn't want to eat the cooking that he made, essentially, and it's really a testament to what propaganda is in the first place. And the second is testament to people in Ukrainian top, or the people who serve Ukrainian top, the quality of those people, what they really think about Ukrainian future, and how and whether they tie their own future with Ukraine. Is very clear answer. About 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, there was similar situation where another journalist who also was pushing propaganda also fled Ukraine in order not to go to the army, because he actually was formally mobilized, so he just fled Ukraine. So as you can see, as I said before, Reds are jumping the ship, and that's the trend is becoming more and more apparent with every day. Now I'm going to switch to the situation on battlefield. gonna do walkthrough in a clockwise fashion, as I always do, starting from very north. Situation along the state border remains more or less the same. No special news there. Nothing of importance. Now let's move to North Luhansk front line. Things here along the main section are somewhat quiet. The main action is actually where here northeast of Kupiansk, where there is I would say relatively strong Russian pressure. They really amped it up. It's more becoming like really organized tactical attacks. So far, Ukrainian forces are holding on, but pressure is strong, and you know, the ability to hold on to it in the future over long run is, I would say, questionable. I'm not saying that the loss of Kupiansk is imminent or anything like that, but all I'm just trying to say is that Russian command is putting pretty strong tactical pressure with strong resources towards northeast of Kupiansk. Now let's move to North Donbass front line. Northern sector is fairly quiet. Now let's move to the southern section of this front line. There is strong pressure again by Russian forces. It's especially strong along this road towards this town Chasiv Yar. So basically, the objective for the Russian forces is to get to Chasiv Yar and get the bridgehead on the other side of this freshwater channel. But again, this is more at the tactical level. It's not sort of major attack here. Now let's move to and then actually a few comments. There's some minor progress by Russian forces. It's, you know, another 100 meters or so. I'm just not showing it yet until there is major progress here or they cover major ground. But from time to time, they sort of basically bite small pieces of Ukrainian territory. Now let's move to central Donbass front line. Things here remain without change. Strong Russian pressure around Avdiivka. It's very clear that this is main objective on the entire front line in Ukraine at this moment. And you know, Russian side is willing to double down and put as many resources as needed to capture Avdiivka. As I said before, it doesn't need to be lost, but the way Ukrainian command and generally Ukrainian army is the way they wage the war, it's gonna get lost at some point. Hard to predict timing on it, but as I say, writing is on the wall. The solution is actually doing counterattacks, but for that you really need trained troops. You need organization between different, or coordination between different types of, let's say, forces such as artillery, reconnaissance, and so on. So this simply doesn't work in the Ukrainian army at this point, and for that matter, it never worked. So that's what I mean. There is also fairly strong Russian pressure towards Novomykhailivka. They also gaining some ground there. Again, 50-100 meters. It's you know, definitely negative, but at this point, it's not enough to show it on the map, and it does look that Novomykhailivka might be lost by Ukrainian forces in foreseeable future. Again, the same idea. You need to do counterattack here, but as I said, the Ukrainian forces are not capable of doing that. Now let's move to Zaporizhya front line. Things here remain fairly quiet, with exception of Russian attacks here around Robotyne. where so far Ukrainian troops are holding on ground. Maybe sometime they may lose, like, again, 50-100 meters, but it's definitely not the same level of pressure as near Kupiansk, Avdiivka, and around Bakhmut. It's definitely a lot less active. Now let's move to the situation along Dnipro River. Things here remain the same, status quo. There was actually an interesting episode where Russian fighter bombers were trying to attack Ukrainian forces on this bridgehead, and Ukrainian forces shot down at least one confirmed, and they claim 3 fighter bombers, Su-34. Again, this goes back to what I mentioned before, that essentially aviation support is extremely limited and extremely weak, and whenever, like in this case, Russian command decided to use aviation in some strengths, they were punished very severely, which I'm pretty sure that this will change their attitude in this way. So in some ways, the takeaway from this, that so far aviation, whether it's aircraft or assault helicopters, are essentially non-player on battlefield, not because there's no potential, but because the anti-air defense is very strong on both sides at this point, and it creates tremendous losses. And there's another problem, at least on the Russian side, there's a shortage of experienced pilots, like very severe shortage, let's put it this way. And so for Russian side, it's not even aircraft that's valuable, but actually pilot that's valuable. It's much more valuable. And so, in most cases, they lose pilots in these situations. Unlike actually those attack helicopters, which by that I refer to Ka-52, not to the Mi ones, because those are terrible ones. But Ka-52 are very good attack helicopters, and the survivability of the crews there is pretty good, I would say. It's not perfect, but it's decent. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Until next time. Bye-bye.